Elul is a month-long holiday, or Hol month, that marks the end of one Jewish year and helps to transition into the beginning of a new one. Traditionally, it is a month of introspection, contemplation, and personal growth. Untraditionally, or at least less traditionally, Elul Unbound is a digital initiative offering up a wide variety of avenues for experimenting over the course of this month. Sign up to join Elul Unbound's email list and learn more about all of Elul Unbound's offerings by heading to judaismunbound.com/ELUL. This is a special bonus edition of Judaism Unbound. Elul number 17, Shofar in the Streets. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Lex Rofberg.
And I'm Wendy Bernstein-Lash.
And we are about halfway through Elul, the month that concludes one year and on-ramps us into the next year. And it's been super great so far. We've been enjoying Elul Unbound, our Judaism Unbound initiative that helps people to mark Elul, and we've been having these Friday Zoom gatherings. Thanks to everybody who's come so far. But we want to check in one more time before the month ends. This is going to be our final episode of the year that is an Elul-flavored episode. And we want to try and start synthesizing what we've been doing in the first 2 weeks. So we talked a little bit about space. We talked a little bit about time. Now we're going to break that binary and show that they're not actually fully separate from one another. So to kick things off, Wendy, how should we be thinking a little bit about the space side of things?
Well, you probably don't know this about me, but I was a science teacher. But I don't want to go into physics. It's not where I am these days. This combination of space and time. So, thinking about space and how we create it, and how we respond to it, and how we affect it. This two-way relationship that we have with space. And then time, that sense of this particularity of a moment is different from another particularity of a moment, and yet they're all threaded together. And so this sense of how over time we build on, we maturate, we marinate. It feels to me like, yes, space and time. These are the things that we affect and affect us. And so now here we are in Elul, partway into the month, which is our capstone of the year and the capstone of this Shemitah cycle. And how are we affected? And how have we affected? And how do we want to affect? I was sharing with you before the podcast about, I'm not a big sports person, but when I was thinking about was the sense of home field advantage. So, when you're in your own turf, it's someplace that you've been over and over again. You know the field, you know the way it plays. You do better. When you've got your favorite little amulet, whatever it is that your ritual that you do before you go out and you do your speech or for you, Lex, you give your sermon or whatever. It's like we do these rituals in time to connect us and to help us be more present. And so I'm just thinking about it that way, of the ways that we do things and when we do them and where we do them, it's all connected and it invites us to be more present.
Okay, shkoyach to Wendy. We've got ourselves a sports reference that is not from me on this podcast. That doesn't happen so much. I'm very, very excited. Home field advantage. This is a great, great connection you're making. And my mind is just beginning to process the implications of what this could mean for my Judaism. So stay tuned for Lex's home field advantage take in 6 months when this is actually soaked in. But for now, home field advantage is really fascinating in terms of the impact it has in sports. So what you described is absolutely true. There's actually quantifiable metrics where being on your home floor in basketball, I know basketball better than other sports, but this tends to be true in other sports too. I just know the precise numbers for basketball. Being on your home court in a college basketball game serves your team by about 3.5 to 4 points. The same two teams playing each other on a neutral court and then playing on one of their home courts, so neutral court being just neither team's home court, just a random place, the team that is on their home court, whatever the likely result would have been on the neutral court. So let's say one team is 7 points better than the other if they were to play a million times. That's the average. If they play on a neutral court, you would guess that the better team will beat the worst team by 7 points. If they play on the worst team's home court, that team that was favored by 7 points, they'll only be favored by about 3 or 3.5 points. And there are, I kid you not, like academic scholarly articles that are trying to unlock what it is that makes home court advantage an advantage. Because you made a point, like, you know, if you have a particular amulet, if you have a particular thing that you're familiar with in your home, like some people say that you just sort of subconsciously, you shoot a little better on your home floor because like you know the space a little better. Even if you've played basketball a million times, like you have certain sight lines in the stadium where you see certain chairs or whatever behind you and it helps you shoot. Some people think that's the primary reason why a team is better. Others say, no, it's not really that. It's that you've got your fans in the crowd. And when you've got more home fans and they're cheering really loudly, then that serves the goals of the team that's being cheered for. Like they've got, you know, momentum and they've got that raucous spirit in the crowd. The reason why it hasn't been solved yet is because there's actually some evidence that even in like an empty stadium, picture COVID or whatever, so there's very few fans or none, the team at home still does a little better. I don't know if they do less better than they would have otherwise, but it's really interesting. What's clear is that being at home, so think metaphorically now, serves you, and being on somebody else's home court makes it harder for you and it makes it easier for them. So all that's to say, home field is a big deal. And I think that applying it to Judaism would be really interesting. And I think some people's thought would be like, oh, so my synagogue, like that's kind of my home turf. I don't know if that's most people's home turf. I think that your home is your home turf. I think the word home field or home court is useful here because I think it's actually most analogous to your actual home, wherever that is. And I think that points to like certain forms of Jewish experiences might be a little better for us in our own space than they would on a quote unquote neutral floor. And on the neutral floor front, I'm actually realizing in real time that neutral floor is basically a public space. If we're thinking about like Jewish spaces as home or away, like a home field would be your home and away would be somebody else's home, right? A neutral floor would be the public. Like it would be somewhere that is not any one person's home. And so for that, I kind of want to go back to you because I know, Wendy, you have some deep thoughts on Judaism in public spaces specifically. So talk to us about that neutral floor.
Well, I've been really inspired, especially by a lot of guests that you've had on Judaism Unbound, about how they are reclaiming the public space as Jewish space. In my own journey with the Jewish Studio Project, you know, the orientation is the art studio as Beit Midrash. The art studio is the place that you dive deeply into Torah and text. And yeah, I think it's interesting. Here in the Bay Area, they have the San Francisco Giants have Jewish Day. They have a lot of, you know, it's the way to get people to games that they don't sell out the crowd. So and you get a little bobblehead of like the rabbi or something, or a talit that's also a scarf. But when you go, you're bringing your community with you and all the other Jewish communities around there. We end up kind of talking about Jewish stuff in the San Francisco Giants, which I go to maybe once a year because I'm not a big sports person. But it's like it becomes this public space becomes Jewish space. And, you know, like taking it and making it sacred, doing something in the grocery store. You mentioned in the last episode about, you know, me blowing shofar in the park, how it's got a Chabad feel to it. And it's like, I like that. It's got a Chabad feel to it, except that I don't give a crap about male and female gender stereotypes. And I don't care whether you're doing the mitzvot a particular way. I like the idea of reclaiming Judaism in public spaces because we don't turn our Judaism, well, we can turn our Judaism off, but I think we shouldn't. It's alive and it's vibrant and there's so much of who we are that's Jewish. We want to take it into the public space and also share whatever that means.
Yeah, the Giants piece is fascinating, and I really am into it. So I want to break down like the people in the Giants stadium on that day into a few different groups. One group sort of the most obvious group for our purposes, is the set of people who go to the Giants game because it is Jewish Heritage Night or Jewish Community Night, whatever. They're Jews. They're going with other Jews to hang out and watch the game, but also maybe schmooze about the latest gossip at synagogue, the new rabbi that we like or don't like. That's one set of people. By the way, I'm not saying that about like San Francisco Jewish community. I'm just saying like, people like to kibitz about whatever gossipy things. Then there's a few other groups. One is the vast majority of people in the stadium who are not Jews and are there because it's a Giants game and they had no idea it's Jewish Heritage Night. Maybe their response to that is like, okay, fine. Like it went on the Jumbotron for 4 seconds in the third inning. Like, oh, nice. Okay, cool. Maybe they missed that and like they go through the whole game and they don't even know that the stadium is made up of a higher percentage of Jews than normal. I think that's probably most of them. They like don't even notice. And then there's a really important group, which is people who might be Jewish or even connected to Jewish life in some way or another, who didn't go to the game because it's Jewish Heritage Night. They just went to the game because either they're season ticket holders or they just decided to go to a game that night and it's a coincidence that it's the Jewish Community Night or whatever. And those people, if they see the Jumbotron in the third inning where it says Jewish Community Night, all of a sudden they might be like, oh, that's cool. Like I didn't even know I was having a Jewish moment. 2 episodes ago in this Elul series, I was like, I didn't even know this was a sacred space, but now it is. Jacob says that in Genesis. Like, I didn't even know this was a holy space, but God showed up and now I know. I think that's kind of the experience if you're somebody who's Jewish who went to the game for no reason but to go to the game. And then you learn, oh my gosh, it's Jewish Community Night. That's fun. Maybe I'll wander over to the little booth or whatever they have to talk about Jewish stuff. I'm sure there's something on that night. And that's cool, right? Like the ability for people who didn't even mean to experience a Jewish action or a Jewish moment, for them to have it arrive on their doorstep, or in this case, on the Jumbotron or in the next section over at the stadium, that's a really powerful thing. And so in terms of Elul, I definitely am feeling called for some of my own engagements with space to be out in public. Now, I'm not a shofar player, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd be with you, Wendy, and I'd be taking my shofar. Yeah, you should teach me through Zoom somehow. But I'm thinking about what else I could do in a public space. First off, I always wear a yarmulke. So there's a way in which anywhere I go in public, I am creating a public Jewish space because I am wearing a yarmulke. That's true even if you're not wearing a yarmulke, by the way. But like for me, it's visible to others very quickly. I want to do something that's beyond my normal, though. I want to think about, is there something I would say that people hear? And it is very Chabad. They have their menorahs that go on the top of cars that they drive around during Hanukkah, or they have shofar blowing in the streets, or they have tefillin on the street corner that are being wrapped. Like, I want to figure out what that might be during Elul, because what public space Judaism does is it creates a moment potentially for other people. And that's Jews who might see it happening and then they're excited because they're also Jewish and like, oh, wow, like I'm going to go participate. And it's potentially a moment of education or learning or engagement or whatever for non-Jews to learn a little nugget about Judaism. Oh, this time of year, people play this ram's horn. I didn't know that. Cool. Okay.
I'm wondering if Judaism Unbound should create little pins that say, ask me about Elul. But yeah, I mean, especially if it's like around food or music or something that everybody can engage with without having to have particular knowledge. Because we go to these crazy places of I don't know enough or you do it differently than I do, but we all eat, we like music. Finding these ways that we can celebrate we're not doing hardcore teaching. We're just saying, hey, there's this cool stuff that's part of my tradition. And you can join in too if you want, or, you're Jewish adjacent or completely unaware. I've been in a lot of interfaith, interspiritual spaces, and it is amazing how much people don't know about Judaism if you're not part of the tribe. And when they discover, they're like, that's really amazing. You have this ritual and you have that. And I think it's wonderful for us. We're not proselytizing, but we are sharing some of our heritage that has these wonderful options for people to connect with. And especially in a very embodied way for talking about food and dancing and music and all of that.
Yeah, and with Shofar, that's also embodied. I mean, I think that the Shofar example is really powerful. I mean, all of those public forms of Jewish engagement are fascinating, and if you were to do them, I think it would be wonderful. But Shofar, because it's just freaking loud, you could do that, and, you know, a 1 block radius or whatever might hear, and that just ups the chance that somebody in that area, whether they're a Jew who's like, oh, wow, there's a shofar, I'm going to go talk to the person below the shofar, that's nice, whatever. Yeah. Or somebody who's not Jewish who's just, oh, they're like, I wonder what is that? I'm going to go ask what just happened. Or sometimes somebody who's not Jewish and really enthusiastic about the ram's horn and the ancient tradition. Sometimes those conversations are a little less comfortable, but if you go about them in a certain way, they might not be as uncomfortably into Judaism as ancient as they could be. But all of that could happen, basically. And because shofars are loud, that's a benefit of that ritual. It's also the downside, right? Like, it could be seen as rude. Why are you doing this religious thing and conquering a 1 block radius of people that are kind of being forced to hear it? People could react negatively to that. Religion should be private. Like, all of that is possible results. So I think that us doing some of that work of shofar, like, that's worthwhile.
Because of COVID, my home community in Palo Alto did shofar blowing in homes. I don't remember if it was the first COVID Rosh Hashanah.
Everybody did it in their own home, you mean?
Yeah. So I blew shofar in my home. People came to the front of my house. And there were people that I had met that I'd never met before who lived near me. And, you know, we're in the suburbs. We're kind of spread out. And it was cool, and brought along some other people. I kind of let my neighbors know I was going to blow shofar because it's pretty loud. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's cool. You know, and so it was a connection point. So I don't know, maybe I'll do an apples and honey stand for Rosh Hashanah on the corner and see who comes.
Yeah, well, to connect the Giants game thing with this idea, it sounds like what we should be doing is going around to different communities, putting apples and honey into like a t-shirt cannon, like they do at the games, and then like launching. No, that would break things probably. But if we found fun t-shirts that don't injure those who are hit by them at a distance, like maybe that's another strategy that would be the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. But, you know, we're talking about public space studios.
Shot out of a air gun.
Cinnamon for the whole neighborhood shot out of this cannon. Yeah. Maybe don't do these literally, but allow them to influence your visions of stuff that would be creative and in public. We are going to close out this episode, and with this closing of this episode, we're closing out our yearly flow of Elul episodes. There's still plenty of time left in Elul, so you're not too late to hop aboard and experience this Challah month that is an off-ramp from one year and an on-ramp into the other. We encourage you to head to our website, judaismunbound.com/Elul, ELUL, if you want to catch up on the podcast you miss, come to our Zoom gatherings that are still happening. And as a reminder, we're going to be having a Havdalah. We're going to be having a service/ritual on Zoom that is going to serve as a way to transition out of the Shemitah year. That's this year that we've been experiencing, the year of release, and transition in to the 6 years that are not a sabbatical year. And so we're excited about that ritual, and we hope that you'll come. You can sign up for that on our website as well. So thanks to everyone for listening. If you have ideas for that Havdalah ritual or anything else, you can email us at elul@judaismunbound.com. And with that, this has been Judaism Unbound.